rang in the new year with a vow to get in shape, which meant pushing myself to go running daily and hitting the gym no matter how late it got. My name's Chris, and I thought a 24-hour fitness center would be perfect. No excuses about work or scheduling. If I was awake, I could train. That's how I found myself swiping my key fob at 11:55 p.m. on January 2nd, determined not to miss a workout. The place was dead quiet. Only a single ceiling light flickered near the treadmills in a far corner. I remember scanning for any sign of life. The front desk was empty, the wait area deserted, and not a single car in the parking lot besides mine. Admittedly, it felt creepy, but I rationalized that everyone was probably at home, sleeping off holiday excess. I hopped on a treadmill in the far row. The overhead TVs were off, but the faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed in the silence. After a few minutes of running, I heard the dull squeak of shoes on the rubber floor behind me. I glanced back, expecting a late-night gym goer, but no one was there. Convinced I was imagining things, I kept my pace. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, and went dark. My treadmill screen died, leaving me in near total darkness except for the faint glow from the exit sign. I fumbled for my phone flashlight. As I clicked it on, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Slow down. You'll hurt yourself." I nearly dropped the phone. A chill rushed through me, sweat turning cold on my skin. For a moment, I thought it might be a friend playing a prank, except no one knew I was here. My heart thumped as I aimed my phone beam at the row of treadmills. They were all empty. Then came another squeak behind me, louder this time. I spun around, phone raised, and briefly illuminated a figure standing by the weight machines. A hooded silhouette. "Hey!" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. The figure didn't move, but I heard something metallic clatter. A dumbbell, maybe. Then the lights snapped back on, harsh and bright. I blinked, adjusting. The figure was gone, but in its place I saw fresh footprints tracked in a puddle of water or sweat leading toward the back corridor. Every instinct told me to leave, but my bag with my car keys was over there, down that same corridor near the lockers. I crept forward, phone at the ready. That's when my phone buzzed again. "You're pushing too hard, Chris. Take a rest." An icy dread washed over me. Someone knew my name. The corridor ahead was dimly lit by a single overhead bulb. I approached my locker, heart pounding. Before I could reach it, a shape darted across the hallway, so close I felt a rush of air. I froze. Had I imagined it? I moved faster now, desperate to grab my bag and get out. As I threw open my locker, I glimpsed a figure at the end of the hall, a hooded man watching me. His voice echoed softly. "I've seen you running here every night. You're committed. I like that." He took one step forward and the overhead bulb flickered, casting his face in half light. A twisted grin flickered across his features. I didn't respond. With adrenaline surging, I snatched my bag, darted past him, and sprinted for the main exit. He lunged, but I managed to slip out of his grasp. My shoulder slammed into the door and I burst into the cold night air. I scrambled to my car, hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the keys. In the harsh glow of the street lamp, I saw him step outside, no longer hiding in the shadows. He stared at me from the gym entrance, tilting his head as if amused by my panic. Then, with an unnerving casualness, he backed inside, letting the door close behind him. I drove straight home, double-checking every mirror to ensure I wasn't followed. My phone buzzed one final time that night. See you tomorrow. I never returned to that gym again. My resolution to get fit ended abruptly, replaced by a deeper resolve. Stay alive. I'm Margot. I'm 27, and for the new year, I resolved to do a complete digital detox. No phone, no social media. It sounded like heaven. A tiny off-grid A-frame cabin in the woods, hours from the nearest town. I told a few friends about my plan, packed enough supplies for a week, and drove out in my old Jeep. The moment I arrived, though, I felt uneasy. The cabin looked quaint from the outside, but up close, I noticed a spiderweb crack across the front window, and the door's lock felt flimsy. Inside, the air was stale, as if it hadn't been aired out in months, despite the listing's claims of rustic charm. I tried to ignore my misgivings. I lit a small fire in the wood stove, brewed tea, and decided I'd fill my time journaling rather than scrolling on my phone. My new resolution in action. That first night, the silence was overwhelming. Usually the woods carry a chorus of small noises. Branches creaking, nocturnal creatures scurrying. But here, it was as if the forest held its breath. Around midnight, a wind picked up, rattling the old cabin. Then, I heard it. 4 distinct knocks on the outer wall. I dismissed it as the shutter banging, but it came again. Each sequence ending with a scratching sound like nails on wood. Trying not to panic, I grabbed a flashlight and carefully peered out the front window. Snow blanketed the porch with no footprints in sight. Convinced the wind was playing tricks, I secured the door and attempted to sleep. At 3 a.m., I woke to a new sound. A voice. Low, breathy, like a whispered chant outside my bedroom window. My heart pounded. I crept to the window, parted the curtain an inch, and saw a tall silhouette. Moonlight revealed only the shape of a body standing unnervingly still. After several tense moments, the figure slipped into the tree line. I questioned my sanity the next morning, but a pit in my stomach wouldn't let it go. I decided to drive into town for supplies and maybe a payphone. That's when I discovered my Jeep's spark plugs were missing. Someone had tampered with my engine. I was stranded. No phone, no vehicle, and miles from the nearest neighbor. As night fell, I tried to fortify the cabin. The wind howled, rattling the doors, while I added wood to the fire for light and clutched a kitchen knife. Then came the scratching. Louder now, inching around the exterior walls. A heavy rattle shook the doorknob. I shouted, "Who's there? I'm armed!" The scratching ceased, only to be followed by a slow, deliberate rasp at the window, like a blade teasing the glass. Terror coursed through me. Suddenly, the front door crashed open, slamming against the wall. A hooded figure stormed inside, brandishing a tire iron that glinted in the firelight. They swung at me, the iron colliding with my knife hand, sending the blade skidding across the floor. I stumbled back, pain exploding in my wrist. In the flickering glow of the fire, I saw pale skin, wild eyes, and a ragged grin. Their breath hissed in the cold air, and they advanced without speaking, as though savoring my panic. A surge of adrenaline flooded my system. I ducked under their next swing, heart pounding, and made a desperate dash for the gaping hole in the door. My socked feet slammed onto the icy porch, snow biting with each step. I heard the attacker cursing behind me, boots crunching on the wooden planks. The world outside was a swirl of darkness and flurries. I slipped on a patch of ice, landing hard on my side, fresh agony shooting through my bruised wrist. Behind me, the intruder clambered off the porch, heavy footsteps splintering the crusted snow. I forced myself upright, lungs burning in the frigid air, and sprinted into the forest. Branches whipped across my face, drawing stinging lines. My toes quickly went numb in the snow, but I refused to stop. Each breath became a ragged gasp, each footstep a promise that if I slowed, I'd be overtaken. The attacker tore through the underbrush, snapping twigs and thudding against tree trunks, no longer moving with stealth. Occasionally, I caught a glimpse of their hood bobbing behind me. I choked out sobs of raw fear, spurred on by the sheer will to survive. A loud crash echoed through the trees. Perhaps they tripped or ran into a fallen branch, and I seized that moment to put distance between us. After what felt like an eternity, I found a narrow logging road, its surface partially cleared of snow. I followed it blindly, praying it would lead to help. Each crunch of gravel beneath my feet felt like a lifeline. I half expected to feel a hand grab my shoulder at any second, to be yanked back into the darkness. But it never came. Eventually, I spotted the soft glow of a ranger station flickering through the pines. I pushed myself forward, lungs aflame, and finally collapsed at the doorstep, hammering on the door until a stunned ranger let me in. Once safe, I shook uncontrollably, trying to explain what happened. Authorities later found my cabin ransacked. Of my assailants, there was no trace. They never caught whoever sabotaged my Jeep, and the online listing for that cabin vanished days later, as if it had never existed. It was a hard lesson. My resolution to unplug nearly cost me my life. Now, I never go anywhere without my phone and a backup battery. Some lessons you only learn by living them, and some nights I still dream of that hooded figure lurking outside, waiting for me to power down. My name's Annabelle, and I'm 26 years old, born in Madrid but raised in the Pacific Northwest. People say I have my abuela's fire in my soul, but even that passion couldn't prepare me for what happened this new year. My roommate Paul and I made an all-or-nothing pact for 2024. We'd challenge ourselves, tackle our biggest fears, and never back down. I should have known her idea of fearless would push me into a nightmare I'll never forget. One of Paula's plans involved moving into a suspiciously cheap rental house on the outskirts of town. Rumor had it there'd been break-ins, squatters, even talk of a grim past. She tried spinning it as conquering our comfort zones, and I, with rent prices rising and my wallet thin, foolishly agreed. On move-in day, as we lugged boxes inside, the whole place felt off. It was an old two-story with broken porch lights that flickered unpredictably, windows that rattled in the wind, and a moldy stench emanating from the walls. Paula dismissed it as charming quirks, but my gut twisted with each creaking floorboard. On our second night, exhausted from packing, I fell asleep around 10 p.m. Paula had crashed earlier, still riding the high of her big New Year, New Me mantra. Around midnight, though, I was jolted awake by the sound of footsteps above me. Paula's room was downstairs, so who was pacing upstairs? The plotting was too heavy, like boots instead of slippers. My stomach clenched. Grabbing a flashlight, I crept up the rickety staircase. The hallway was pitch dark except for a sliver of moonlight that sneaked in past a shredded curtain at the far window. As I swept my flashlight along the corridor, I noticed a door slightly ajar. I hadn't recalled any room there except for the bathroom and an empty guest space. Fear prickled my neck, and I pushed it open to reveal a cramped storage closet. Inside lay a filthy mattress, stained blankets, and half-eaten snack wrappers. My pulse spiked. Someone had been living up here. I raced downstairs, heart in my throat, ready to confront Paula. Except she was gone. A note on the fridge said she'd gone on a late-night grocery run. Alone in that creaking house, I perched on the sofa, every noise amplified by my anxiety. Hours dragged by. The wind outside kicked up. Finally, just after 2 a.m., Paula returned. The moment she walked in, I blurted out what I'd found. To my shock, she looked almost guilty. That's when she confessed she'd found the house through a shady online contact offering a too-good-to-be-true deal. She'd heard rumors about vagrants, but she didn't want to scare me off. Furious, I insisted we leave immediately. But Paula, stubborn as always, argued that our pact meant sticking it out and facing our fears. I felt cornered by her pride and our lack of spare cash to move again. The next night, I barely slept. Around midnight, footsteps returned, this time in the hallway near my bedroom. My heart thundered as I lay still, praying it was Paula. But the footsteps paused right at my door, and then continued down the corridor. I almost called out, but couldn't force the words past my fear. Eventually, exhaustion claimed me, and I dozed off. Morning light brought a worse revelation. Paula's bed was empty, her covers half thrown aside. A trail of muddy footprints led out the back door. My entire body went cold. I searched every corner, calling her name to no avail. Then, from upstairs, a thunderous crash made my blood run cold. Racing back up, I found the closet door wide open. Inside was Paula's phone, crushed beneath something heavy. My hands shook as I ran onto the porch and dialed 911. While I was on the line, I glimpsed a figure skirting the side of the house, dragging something. My mind leapt to Paula. Was she hurt, unconscious, or worse? Within minutes, the police arrived. They swarmed the property, combing through every room, every musty corner. But the intruder was gone, leaving only footprints snaking into the woods. No sign of Paula. For 3 agonizing days, I hardly slept. I bombarded the police with calls, taped flyers around town, and even searched abandoned shacks near the outskirts. Then, a miracle. A gas station attendant spotted Paula stumbling in, disoriented and terrified. She'd been abducted by whoever had been squatting in that house. She refused to share details, but whatever happened left a haunting emptiness in her eyes. The day Paula got discharged from the hospital, we tore up the lease without a second thought. Our all-or-nothing pact died right there, lost beneath a mountain of shattered nerves. In hindsight, it's obvious we never should have stayed. That grand resolution we thought would make us braver, it nearly left one of us missing forever. The police hinted that there'd been other break-ins in the area, possibly more than one predator working together. We never learned who snatched Paula or how they slipped away so clean. Sometimes I question why I didn't force us to leave sooner. Why I let my abuela's stubborn blood keep me in a house that screamed danger with every creaking floorboard. I'm only telling this now so maybe someone else won't repeat our mistake. If a place feels wrong, if your gut tells you to run, listen. No New Year's promise is worth risking your life. Because when you're lying there in the dark, hearing footsteps above you and the person in the next room has vanished, you realize the worst threats don't always come crashing through the front door.